You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we've got a great friend back, Tim Wilson from Product Win. Longtime friend, just great all-around person, and we were chatting, I don't know, maybe a week ago or so, or 2 weeks, and said, hey, we should jump back on and do another podcast around current state of whatever in digital. And so, Tim, I'll kind of kick it over to you. I don't know, you want to do a brief background on yourself, and then
Sure.
let's kind of dive into what you're seeing as top of mind lately for people.
And I'm happy to. I got to say, I feel like if the e-com industry was a high school yearbook, you'd be just voted like friendliest. Remember
Miss
they have
Congeniality.
superlatives, most athletic, most friendliest person. It's fun hanging out. Yeah, we were just like a week ago. It was supposed to be a quick catch up that lasted an hour, and here we are again.
I think at the end of it was a great conversation. I'm like, dang it all, I wish we'd recorded it.
I know.
I joke around with my wife all the time. My addiction is people. And it's not hers by any means. She's more of an introvert. So, but for me, my addiction is people. I love them. So
we were just talking about how it's where it's fun to give. So I used to, Simon Sinek?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I recently signed up for some of his courses. He's got one on presenting and how to present. Because I eat up his stuff. That whole start with why thing, I've watched that 10 times, right? And in his how to present course, one of the things he talks about is to just take a big breath. And before you go do something, just remind yourself that you're there to give. He's like, and when you're there to give, you're on a topic you already know, it just relieves all the pressure. Because if you're there to sell or pitch, I don't know. First of all, the presentation usually sucks because people can see through it, but it's also, there's a lot of pressure on yourself. And so I was just at e-tail and it's like, I'm here to give. And it just was like the most relaxing chat I've ever done.
Don't you see? So let's go down the trade show route just a little bit. That's what I found. I think it really started to go downhill after Scott Wingo stopped doing the Amazon and Me Day at IRCE. And I think the Prosper show is out there. They come really close to it. But one of the, when you go to a show and you go in to see a talk and somebody is like, hey, you've got a problem. And you're like, yeah, I got a problem. Is this just probably your problem? Yeah, that's exactly my problem. Did you know there's a way to find it or to solve it? Yeah, there's a way to solve it. Well, if I know how to solve it. All right. And you're waiting for them to tell you. And then their time is up and they're like, and so I like to know that everybody, here's my card, give me a ring and I'll solve it.
I mean, just as a general statement, I feel like for the last few years, and maybe I'm just because I'm older and I'm turning into a curmudgeon, I don't know, but it feels to me like when you go to a lot of these conferences, the information that's shared is information that's generally pretty well available. You never see an HP or some company go up on stage and really pull back the curtain and talk in great detail about the things they're doing to improve their business, and so for me, the value but I still love these shows because the value is still just the unprompted or unscripted discussions that happen, at the conference, bumping into people at Starbucks or at a restaurant. And even a lot of conferences, sometimes once the person's done with their presentation, if there's room for Q&A, you can ask great questions or even just learn from the questions that people are asking. But the scripted stuff, I feel like as a community, we would all do better if people would be a little more specific with how what they're up to.
Yeah, I agree. I go to the shows. So my favorite shows out there are e-tail because of the size and intimacy of it. Shop Talk because the number of people that are there. And I agree, the content is good, but the people there are fantastic. And to be able to just network afterwards, all the things that are going on, randomly go up and talk to people. I think one of the cool thing about people in the e-commerce space. It's those people who were crazy enough to jump into, especially people a little bit older, like 10, 15 years ago, the people who are like, yeah, I'll give that a whirl. It takes a certain mindset and personality to jump into something crazy like that. And so they're naturally a little bit more extroverted. So you can go literally talk to anybody. You've got the accelerates and the unboxed. Like it's for me, it's less about the content now, what's being delivered on stage in the presentations, and more about just the interactions you can have with all the brands that are going in and out. And if you're on the brand side, you're at this super unique advantage because, right, I can imagine like if you're walking up to a brand, you can, in your mind, you just want to make friends with them because I know you, right? You don't want to jump in and sell them anything, but you see somebody at a cool brand, like, hey, I'd love to learn from you. From a service provider, a partner, so they might be like, hey, what are you trying to sell me? And I'm kind of amazed that brands more often don't just walk up and talk to other brands and find a way to connect with them and meet for coffee, or, who cares what, just a Zoom call together, just to build a network and bounce ideas off from each other at those conferences. Now, I built a business off of networking, so it's a little bit different. So it's
I
natural.
was just gonna say, yeah, but it's true. Like, look, the way I think of everything that I'm doing is what's the upside and what's the downside? And getting to know somebody and talking to somebody has infinite upside, and really the downside is quite small. So just the idea of connecting with people, and you're right. I mean, Etel West in particular is a great show because there's one bar. So, and it's this huge lobby bar. There's only one place to congregate. So it makes the networking is so easy, which is great. And that's part of the challenge. That's the give and take of things like Shop Talk coming up in a few weeks, right? It's massive. Mandalay Bay's got a ton of places to go. There's obviously a couple corridors there where a lot of people hang out, but the bigger the show, the harder it can be to network unless you put a lot of work in up front to have those, meetings scheduled. But I would love to see, I mean, this is a good community of collaborators as a general statement. I used to, in my very early days, I was selling IT software, service oriented architecture back in 2005, 2006. And I was like, what am I doing? And then I ultimately found e-commerce, and you're right. And the thing that makes it the most fun for me are, generally speaking, if I find out you're in the e-commerce world, I'm probably going to like you, just because there's something about your personality and the way you view the world that aligns with my views. So it's great. I love the space. There's so many great people, and there's so many, I remember last year at Etel West, we went out for dinner. We had that great dinner, totally impromptu, 8 of us around a table and just
Oh,
sharing ideas, and, maybe one too many espresso martinis, but
who was it? James Thompson, who
James.
was talking about like that was cool. We're talking about business, and he flips to surfing down on the coast in Mexico, and a rabid pack of chihuahuas or whatever shows
Yeah,
up.
that's right. That Chihuahua story from James. That was awesome, man. Yeah. And Shoop from Instapot,
Yeah.
just ripping on like the company iterations that he's been going through there. Like that's where all the good stuff happens. And to me, the biggest value in these conferences is that opportunity, because that was not a planned dinner. We just met in
Mm-mm.
the lobby and we just kept bumping into each other. Next thing you know, we're getting to take
Like,
a
oh,
break.
let's all go. Let's roll. That was awesome.
Yeah.
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 I mean, the networking is huge. So that's I focus because I get asked that a lot. So I guess a takeaway there is just around your expectations around the conferences you're going to. Um, there are usually one or two cool little notes that you can take, or keynotes that you can hit. And I just kind of advise people like there's great conferences, there's good conferences, there's bad conferences as far as content goes. But usually you can look at the quality of the people who are there, and you can make it your own mini conference as a whole. And what did you take away? If you can walk away with 4 or 5 people that you can bounce ideas off from, right? That you can just, randomly give a call, drop once a quarter a connection on. I mean, that stuff is golden. And when you start to, build that over time, where, okay, you go to 3 conferences a year and you grab 4 people, new people. Okay, well, at the end of the year, you should have 12 people. And those 12 people are going to move around. And then the next year, at the end of that year, you should have 24 people. And then you can have 36 people. And then, yes, people are going to go in and out. Sometimes it'll shrink. But I mean, that's kind of was always my goal, is that how many people can I meet that's meaningful, not just a quick, hey, I'm Aaron, and move on. But hey, I'm Aaron. Here's what I do. Here's the business I'm trying to build. I'm in OTC pharma. It's really hard on Amazon. It's highly regulated. I'm having an issue with content. I'm having an issue with product pages. I'm having an issue with A plus, those type of things, chargebacks, everything. And I think what I found was like everybody else was having the same issues.
Yeah. Look, we're all a product of our experiences. So the more different experiences you can bring into something, the better.
Yeah.
Actually, in two things that I take away from that, and I'm just jumping, two observations coming out of this past week for me. One, there are AI agents everywhere for commerce. That has just become front and center with AI. And then the second thing is I'm seeing, and I'm curious if you had seen this as well, Aaron, on the brand side, already just a lot of hesitation with their products and product launches and things that are happening because of uncertainty around their cost structures with these tariffs and things of that nature. I know of a few companies in particular that their NPI, their new product introductions that they have planned for the year, are have become a little more tenuous because of the uncertain costs. Have you bumped into any of that at all, or?
Yeah. And then I want to go back to the AI, like assistants. What were you talking about?
AI agents. I'm just
AI.
like commerce agents that people are plugging into everything from video to. I mean, I was just walking the aisles. We don't obviously we don't do that, but my takeaway from the floor at Etail West is that, first of all, AI is everywhere. It makes me wonder how much of it is AI versus just, you bolded the letters A and I in your logo. And
Yeah.
agents in particular, chatbots and things of that nature, helping to enable commerce.
So let's go through the brand side first, and then I'll kind of give my AI watch outs, because
Yeah.
just talking to a lot of brands, that some have been burned and some have had really good success stories, and others is kind of mediocre. Um, so from the brand side, new product introductions and new product launches, it's not just on the brand. There's a couple dynamics that are happening. Um, there's also a lot going on with PE and VC money, especially on the PE side. When they took on, the massive acquisitions in late 2020 and into 2021. And I think I've chatted with this, brought this up a couple times on the podcast, which was, when the government prints trillions of dollars, banks loan out money really cheap. And so valuations went through the roof, and a lot of brands, we saw them get acquired. We saw a lot of tech get acquired as well, and a lot of agencies get acquired. The issue that happens at the end is, okay, so we're 5 years in, 4 to 4.5 years in. The LPs that have put money into PE, they want their money back. And so budgets across the board have been held up. And then if you stack on, so that's an uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then not being able to do, from a brand and a manufacturer side, an accurate prediction of your overall cost of goods sold, because you don't know how much it's going to cost. You don't know if these tariffs are going to hit in full or a fraction, to try to then, with those two things going on. So you have, we want absolute as much certainty as possible around what it looks like, so we can turn the company, where you can get the next round of investors or sell or, retrade or whatever. You have all this uncertainty in product cost. And in those times, people hold on to cash, and they're waiting to see. It seems to me like end of Q1 is what they're looking for, end of March. And at that point in time, if you don't have your budgets out and your budgets approved, if you don't have those, if you think from a budget, if you're cutting a PO for new materials to come in, if you don't have it by then, you miss the year.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
yeah, that.
So what's your hot take then on the industry? Do you think that with all these, fast forward 5 years, do you think like 2026 is going to be the year of more consolidation as people try to exit certain positions?
There's going to be there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines right now, ready to buy distressed assets.
Yeah.
And so it's a interesting time if you had money. So there's either going to be a lot of down rounds, which are going to have current investors all worked up, or just distressed assets being put on to the market, which in all reality, they are really, really good businesses just with too much debt laid on top of it. That's
Yeah. Yeah. I feel lucky. I've done that path before a couple times. Um, Products when we're completely like we're profitable, so we're just not taking on money and just well, sometimes there's tension there because of my desire for more resources and more fuel to grow faster. It's like the give and take of responsible, aggressive growth.
yeah, which
But
got out of hand in late
oh,
2020 and into 2021.
totally, yeah. Hey, by the way, congratulations to everyone who cashed in that period
Yeah,
because
I know, right?
oh, you timed the market right. Good on you.
Yeah. It's so true. So then let's if we want to move on to the AI piece then, because this what we're talking about here leads into that. So what's happened then is as the PE and VC money dries up, there was, once Chat GPT hit the market, the interest in AI went through the roof. And I often joke that, I could have launched an AI tech company in that little window there because they were just throwing money at everybody. But as the PE VC money dries up in that space, what we get is the real providers sticking around. And then the watch outs around there are number one, the price, because there's a lot that is just the mechanical Turk, really. That they're saying we're AI, but they're not. If they're not solving a problem for you cheaper, less expensive, then they're really just dumping the data overseas overnight for hands-on keyboards, and it comes back fresh in the morning. Which 5 years ago nobody cared about. They just wanted an answer, and they don't really care at the end of the day how you get the answer. E-commerce is blowing up. Um, it was, FOMO, of not having the right tech. And so you could go around and demand, as a service provider, higher prices for what you were doing, just covering for manpower overseas. That doesn't cut it anymore. And so if you're not seeing a massive impact on overall costs, then it's probably not real AI and machine learning. The next watch out is just around the fact that um, a lot of these, let's say AI agents, or what they're doing is they're just plugged into Chat GPT or Perplexity or whatever on the back end. And that's a watch out for a company, because a lot of these smaller ones, if they haven't been around for a while, if they haven't been training their module for 2 years, it's going to be very scary, the outputs that they give. And
so
you
okay,
get to the point where it might be flash in the pan. Yeah.
so this question, so what's wrong? And I honestly I don't know. Like I'm going, but like you're saying, you have to have trained your models for a couple of years, and I look at things. I feel like maybe I'm wrong. Most companies are just plugging into ChatGPT in some way. What are the downsides there?
Um, what's happening with the data, right? Because anything, if you're not on an independent instance, that's a secured instance, that
Yeah.
what you're putting in gets kicked out to the web. It
Yeah.
gets fed into the pool of data that can be pulled from.
Yeah. Isn't that what happened? Wasn't there some story a couple years ago? I think maybe it was with Jasper. By the way, Jasper, what an amazing company. They were actually the first, and then they came out in whatever that was, September, with all this hoopla. I think they raised $100 million round, an A round, and then ChatGPT was launched in
Yeah.
December. I feel, Jasper has actually done a great job pivoting since then. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen it, but like, my God, just talking about
Yeah.
the bolt from under you. But I felt like I read some case about somebody, a major company was putting their marketing plans or product plans into Jasper, only to then find out that it's like getting kicked back out to competitors in the space. We're able to like harvest it in some way. Is that a thing that people are able to do, is like harvest competitive
Uh,
intel through?
yeah, in a way. So, as people were trying to use these independently, right, they would say, okay, I've got to crunch through these product specs and they would upload it into their own personal instance of ChatGPT and say, "Hey, kick me out. What what are the key takeaways?"
Yeah.
Well, when you push that into ChatGPT, it is now embedded in the internet for everybody to pull from. And then based on, remember, because the key to like a ChatGPT or whatever is you use Perplexity or whatever, is the prompts that you put in. And the
Yeah.
more specific you get, the more mining of accurate data you can get back out. And so you can start to look, because it doesn't just get dispersed in there. It still sets as a chunk. Whatever you've uploaded is now a chunk of data that's now ingested out on the web. If somebody can find their way via prompts to grab that and ingest it, it can be bad.
I completely agree. I mean, it feels like this is a boost in the arm for all the liberal arts, a Bachelor of Arts kind of degrees that are out there. You're a journalism major. You actually have a potentially great future in the business world with your ability to do like investigative journalism, if you will, and peel the onion and dig down to be more specific with those prompts. It's a talent that is not, or a muscle that's not very, very strong in a lot of people I see.
No, I mean, I was just having this conversation with my wife, right, who homeschools, and it's a nationwide networking group that they kind of everybody learns together, and so they have these like leadership meetings, and in it, one of the things that brought up is how we are going away from a written society back to an all oral society, and if you think about how long ago that was basically like predating papyrus.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. That's an interesting take, though.
Because everything can be audio now. ChatGPT, like writing it. We are going rapidly. The idea of voice commerce and what Amazon thought of with the Alexa
Yeah,
is phenomenal. Apple and Siri, where it's going is totally crazy. Because at some point in time, you know, the book actually for penmanship in English that my wife uses for the kids is The Lost Art of Writing. So it's very, very interesting. But
yeah,
it's
it is.
so from the AI side, that's a watch out. What are the other watch outs? The other watch outs are don't be afraid to ask it something, right? Like if you have it and you have an instance, and your company has one, and sometimes it's Copilot or whatever it might be, like, you have this. I found myself doing this when I was creating a logo for, we have a YouTube channel for all the webinars we do now. We're starting to launch all those. And so I went to create a logo for it. And, I asked it, I didn't like it. So I asked it to do another and I didn't like it. And I asked it to do another and I kept giving refining terms. And at some point in time, I started to feel bad for asking it. It does not care. It does not care how many times you ask it. Like
Not
you
care.
can do it. And people get held up because it can be so conversational. They they almost like personify it, right? Like, oh, this
It,
AI is an actual person. It's going to get tired of me asking. It's never going to get tired of you asking. So I see people running to that all the time. It's like, oh, I just don't want to ask it anymore.
yeah. I mean, I know this isn't AI, but it's like, and things for me, I find for things that are a little bit more of an art, which I would put logos in, I still think a 99 Designs is the best way to go. You get so many different viewpoints, different experiences, and for $100, you'll get. Oh, I've just had great success going out and getting totally different ideas. I feel like for me, the big gotcha with AI is really more about like the internal side and the culture and the development. I felt like the change management is the bigger part of it, getting companies to understand how to best use it and um, the implications of the use, right? I think that for most people listening, our use of ChatGPT is still so nascent. With
Mm-hmm.
simply having your overseas team putting their emails into ChatGPT to check for grammar and just tone and tonality and whatnot, or actually, I'm somewhat embarrassed. I have a daughter in fifth grade that I helped her do a book report by like rising there. Time was of the essence. Like we don't do this always, but like I think it's like that simple, like reading text and providing feedback kind of approach versus the real juice I've seen is when you do go deeper and deeper. Like for us, one of the things we've done is trying to really understand our customers better and trying to just focus in on um, the customer, like what they're concerned about. So just being able to take um, tons of transcripts of calls and different online things we have with transcripts, put it all in and ask for common themes about hesitations or concerns that our customers have, and trying to identify, at scale, what are the best areas for improvement. Now we have obviously like our opportunities to go out and do this. Doesn't replace customer advisory boards and things of that nature, but I think it's a great way to guide the conversation of what should be on there, what should be on the agenda. So for me, that's one of the favorite things that I've seen is just us really being able to interrogate our customers to figure out how we can be better service to them.
Yeah, how do people look at that if we go back to the new item launch piece?
Yeah.
If there is something that's holding it up, like for all those people that can jump in and do it, because that's where you guys sit, right? In a lot of cases, and I know it can go, new item launch on Amazon. It can go anywhere. You in my mind, what you're doing is very highly effective traffic driving, right? For high intent customers to buy. So accelerating, basically the flywheel, Amazon, Walmart, probably direct consumer. I mean, it's just a link to go anywhere. Like, what are you seeing for brands out there during this kind of time where um, I have this thought as you're talking about it was if I have my competition waiting to do anything, now's the time to launch as much as possible. If my competition's not going to be doing it.
Yeah. I mean, so first off, we've definitely seen some percentage of our customers have a little more caution because of their supply chain questions marked around COGS with the tariffs. That said, overall, what's the right way to say this? Like, our business is growing very quickly, very rapidly. We're launching more campaigns every quarter than we were the quarter before. Um, things are great, and we're uncovering. Now that we've moved from an agency model to like a software model where people can go in and just do this stuff themselves, we're seeing use cases we haven't even considered before. We have one brand that they weren't happy with their IPI with Amazon, and they weren't happy with the amount of warehouse space they were being allotted for a holiday. So we worked with them over the summer to just basically blow through their inventory. Amazon rewarded them by giving them a much bigger inventory space time for the holidays, and they had the best holiday season they've ever had by a mile. And the idea of like innovating ways, if I wanted to strategically you know accelerate sales at certain times or in certain ways, how can I use that as almost like a sniper approach?
Do you want to just for people listening, do you want to walk through like the product win model really quick so they understand?
Sure. Yeah. So Product Win, we have a philosophy, or really it's a theology, because it's a belief that retailers, led by Amazon and Walmart, but all retailers are becoming algorithmically more and more algorithmically driven. And an algorithm at its core is just analyzing data and information. So we run campaigns for the specific purpose of marketing to the algorithm, sending in the data we know it loves, training the algo into loving your product. And the results of that are going to be things like an increase in share of voice, an increase in media efficiency, um, increase in all your core e-commerce KPIs, and just kind of spin that flywheel for you. And there's different ways and elements you can do it, whether it's on a product launch, which is the most obvious time people use us to make their products retail ready in about 30 days. Or, existing products which we've talked about in the past that, maybe you strategically want to support. The best way to win Prime Day, for example, isn't to load up on Prime Day. It's you start winning that 30 days earlier by training the algorithm into loving you, so that on Prime Day you're already really well positioned. There's lots of different use cases like that.
That's awesome. I mean, are you still finding any like pushback or hesitancy? I mean, I did this, just at Perigo around executives not quite understanding that because in the past, right, a Black Friday, in a store, it's your discount and your inventory in the store on that day or those 5 days or whatever, not necessarily online, where these ideas that with Amazon, you can't just stock up Amazon, like you're saying, on, Prime Day or whatever Prime Week it is now, to just, if you have a huge markdown, that all of that work goes into everything ahead of time to get the traffic to a page, the organic search to the top. Are you still
I mean,
seeing that a bunch?
we do definitely. And by the way, quick question: is Prime Day the one from Prime Day to Prime 2 days? Is it now Prime 4 days? Is that what it is, or is it a full week?
I have no idea anymore.
I've heard rumblings that it's gonna be like 4 days
It,
this summer. I don't know if anybody's
yes.
heard anything. I would love.
For the second Prime Day, right? And then back to school is huge. And then you have Turkey. It's basically now from like July through the second week of December. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Went from like I think about like Turkey 5 to like what they call it Turkey 12 last year. It was like Turkey 1
Yep.
8 now. Turkey 1 8. It starts now.
Cyber quarter. That's pretty much what it is now.
Cyber quarter. I mean, yeah, I definitely, there's definitely questions from senior folk at some companies, and they just haven't had the benefit of well, they just haven't had the benefit of being super close to a lot of what goes on, right?
Mhm.
The position that they're in dictates that they can only focus their energies in certain areas, and so that's why you have to, as a potentially like a mid-level person at that company, it's your opportunity to really lead the change and be the true change agent in terms of digital transformation at your company, because you're the one that actually is connecting the connective tissue between the carbidinulators of like the buttons that you have to push to make things work and the overall corporate strategy that's being set up. Like you are that literally that connective tissue in between. And your ability to tell a story and hopefully tell a story with data is what's going to really allow your organization to transform digitally. So our job at Product Wind is to support you by providing you with different data and contextual information and evidence as to the result and the impact on your business and what it means to actually, be able to selectively spin the flywheel where and when you want.
Yeah. I'm going to go full circle here because you're just talking about telling a story. There's a couple of things that are going on. One is where marketing teams are more data driven than
Oh,
ever before,
sure.
right? I remember this old, Dilbert cartoon, and they're like, "Oh, give it to marketing. It's just liquor and guessing." Um, and that's when I was on a project management team. We used to laugh, and then you get into marketing now, and it's completely
Oh
flipped
my
from
gosh.
10 to 15 years ago, where there's so much data out there. There still is, the human interaction. AI can't take completely over. But the amount of data that's over there, and then the story that you end up having to tell, like it's kind of, it's funny, like we were talking about, right, with Simon Sinek was, when you're going in there to do a presentation, thinking about giving, because I think a lot of people go into those scenarios very trepidatious or nervous about what they're going to deliver. And I try to remind people all the time that the executive teams, very few of them, while they're very, very smart, they're not very versed in the intricacies of digital commerce. And you have the opportunity to go in there and educate them and to be a giver of that
Yes.
knowledge. And that I love what you're saying from the standpoint when you think of it being a giver, you it changes your delivery as a whole. Uh, as a whole.
Changes the delivery, changes, yeah, the tone. I mean, the other important thing we were talking about with all this, whether it's AI or whatever, it's interesting because as we become way more, I'll call it technologically advanced in everything we're doing. By the way, I mean marketers are not only extremely smart data people these days, they're also, tech fiends. Think of the number of vendors they're talking to and different technologies they have to manage. It's really impressive, but it's I lost my train of thought, but they were the big important thing is to be able to say you don't know, and they got to understand that when you're the storyteller, most people won't admit that they're confused or they don't quite understand or they know what's going on. So it's important that you are always speaking and sharing information in a way that is most going to be understood most fundamentally. And when they really get that fundamental component that you're asking, they will naturally ask the more you'll know because they'll start asking you the more specific questions that you can peel the onion on. But if you start by sharing information that is almost too specific or like they don't quite understand, you're not going to get it it's unlikely that you're going to get all the questions that you really should be getting. So, the biggest, whether it's AI or anything, and it's fortunately actually something that I think I'm pretty good at, like just admitting you don't know what's going on.
This is all around nice person too, right?
But that's also to bring it full circle how we started. Like that's why this community is so great. Why going out and that dinner with James Thompson last year, or just bumping into whomever at these shows. Oftentimes, when you're willing to say you don't know, there's somebody who's going to share with you exactly what their experience was, and you can learn. And that's how I don't think none of us went to school. All of us that are listening, none of us went to school for e-commerce. It's not a thing that existed. We're all here by accident, and we're all here because we are curious and we're happy to ask the questions. And so whenever there's this new revolution, I just think it's important to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Sounds
awesome,
corny, but it's true. Sounds corny, but it's true.
No, I think it's awesome, and I think it's a great spot to kind of end this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Is that community aspect, and you said it great, and I think we'll wrap up this episode here. Thanks, Tim. You guys are awesome, and with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for listening in.